Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, and Brian Murphy on what has been quite the week here in the sports world. We're talking about sports and not playing sports, or maybe playing sports. I don't know. Like, we're just taking it day by day at this point.
Well, what's great, Jeffrey, is last week the title of this podcast was "Football is Back, We Think." So, what's the title this week?
We think football might not be back, or maybe I don't know. Like, we gotta, it's up in the air right now. We're evaluating the situation. We're discussing things with doctors and consulting the American Athletic Conference's medical advisory board on what are the proper steps for.
Did Mike Oresco just get on the line? Who is this?
Yeah, right. We are blackandgoldbanneret.com, SB Nation's home for your UCF Knights. Facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret, UCF_Banneret on Twitter. We'll be spending pretty much the entire podcast talking about exactly this because holy smokes, did we have a day of news. Actually, a couple days of news. What am I saying? It all started, at least as of right now. Here's the current state of play. If you have been living under a rock over the last few days, as the clouds started to gather on,
or a bubble.
Monday.
In fairness, like I have.
Fair. Good. Thank you for that. I can't believe I missed that one. That one was wide open and I missed it. The reporting started trickling out by Tuesday that the Big Ten was probably going to cancel its season, or at least postpone it. And lo and behold, they weren't the first ones to pull the plug. Actually, the answer to that trivia question is the Mountain West Conference at 5:34 on Monday, 5:34 Eastern in the afternoon. The Mountain West said they're not playing fall football. They would consider playing in the spring. Brett McMurphy had that. Elsewhere, a couple other conferences said, we're going to follow the SEC's lead, namely the Sun Belt Conference said that. Within Conference USA, Old Dominion said they're not going to play, but Conference USA as a whole hasn't said anything. And
Conference USA tonight that they're moving forward with playing.
Right. But at least as of Monday, we hadn't known. Right. So that takes us to Tuesday. First domino to fall was UMass. They canceled all their fall football, and then later in the afternoon, the Big 12 announced that the fall season is canceled. They would attempt to move the season to the spring. Pete Thamel reported that an ACC source told them we're further away from pulling out now than we were a few days ago. I think we're more steady in the boat and sticking with our plan. Given the conditions, we know that can change quickly. So everyone was expecting the Pac-12 to follow suit, and then lo and behold, they did. About an hour and a half after that. So the Big Ten and the Pac-12 announced that they were canceling their fall football season. The Pac-12 announced they were canceling all sports for the rest of the 2020 calendar year. All right, so that includes all of the Olympic sports, which the Pac-12 takes a lot of pride in and is rather known for.
It includes about a month and a half of basketball.
Yeah, so they're thinking maybe conference only in the spring for basketball. Who knows? So how about Jeff Scott, the head coach of South Florida, saying the new Power Four, SEC, ACC, Big 12, AAC, conference champs go to the college football playoff. Actually, it's pretty funny.
Is he wrong? I don't think he's wrong.
I know. Kenny Turnier, the UCF defensive lineman, said Big 12, Pac-12, Who's next? The ACC then came out and said that they were staying the course. The SEC later that evening said that they were staying the course. And the American Athletic Conference hasn't put anything out official, right, Murph? But basically, through what Mike Oresco has been saying in radio interviews, including one with Paul Feinbaum earlier today, was that it was going to stick around. The Big 12, meanwhile, announced its actual fall football schedule.
I love that. Love that. You're like, by the way, we're not going anywhere, and here's who we're playing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The Big 12, Tuesday night, the presidents all had a meeting, and instead of saying we're out, when they came out of when the white smoke came out of the chimney, they're like, here's our schedule, in fact. How do you like that? So Conference USA's officials, they're kind of in a holding pattern as well. But right now, here's where we're at. The Mountain West is done. The Big Ten is done until the spring. These are all done until the spring at least. The Mountain West, Pac-12, and Big Ten.
Don't forget the MAC.
And the MAC. So
because that goes back to Saturday. I mean, we could really drag this back to last week with we want to play.
We wanted to.
We really want. I know you don't want to, but we could really drag this back to the last week of the we want to play movement. The Trevor Lawrence post on the midnight Sunday and all that upheaval.
Jordan getting involved. Oh God,
it was a lot.
There was a lot going on. So anyway, the lead right now is, hey, the Power Six lives, right? We got 6 conferences left in FBS football that are still playing. And I think everyone except the ACC, or at least the Power 5 conferences remaining, with the exception of the ACC, who's been quiet about it, or they've all said that they were going to start, what was it, Eric, September 26th?
Well, we don't know that officially yet. There's been speculated. Right. We know the SEC is going to start on the 26th. The Big 12 has moved things to the 26th. Of note, USF will not get that paycheck from Texas. Texas has selected UTEP as their one non-conference game. So our friends at the Daily Stampede,
UTEP, you are Texas's non-conference.
Now you bring up the ACC. That has been there's been speculation from insiders that the ACC could, and again, we're recording this Wednesday night, and I cannot emphasize that enough, because at the tempo that we're going, this thing will change a million times. There's speculation that they could move the ACC to September 26th. Some have speculated they might just drop the non-conference game to make that happen, which obviously would affect UCF's game against Georgia Tech, which is scheduled as of now for September 19th. But as of this recording, that is still on the table. The ACC has not commented officially as far as changing anything scheduling-wise. All we've gotten indications for sure is that they're moving forward.
So that leaves us, Brian Murphy, with the ever important question of, well,
what do we do now? Where is the American Athletic Conference? And I know that obviously we've heard a lot from Mike Oresco, but where do we stand right now?
The American Athletic Conference is moving ahead step by step, day by day, with caution. Basically, I think that the if you listen to Oresco today on Feinbaum, the general crux of his point of view of why the AAC is continuing is that they think it's too soon to make a decision that would impact so many student athletes. And he talks a lot about how they want to look after the student athletes first. They want to care about the student athletes first, and that telling them right now that they're not going to have a season when there's still, a month ago. We are a month away from today, from UCF's first game as scheduled. Telling them right now that they don't have a season, he thinks it's too soon. So basically, they're going to proceed with caution. Now, he did also say that the Big 12's announcement from Tuesday, when the Big 12 said on Tuesday that they're going to continue forward, he turned that as a linchpin decision for the AAC. If the Big 12 had decided to fold on Tuesday, I think you would have seen the AAC go with it. And certainly, if the AAC, whenever the Big 12, or if the Big 12 and the ACC do, the American's not going to be just out here by itself playing each other when everyone else has gone home. I think Oresco knows that if the other Power 5 conferences pack it in, the 3 that are left, the American's going with them. But with the 3 that are remaining, especially the Big 12 and the ACC, they're going to keep chugging along. And I don't think they're looking past anything past really tomorrow, because they know it could all change. But that's where we are now. They're cautiously optimistic, and see what Thursday and Friday and the weekend and next week bring.
I was trying to pull up the non-conference schedules for some teams in the American, at least what they have right now. Houston, at least as of right now, has BYU, who's an independent, and North Texas, who is Conference USA, right? Or are they Sun Belt? I forget. But either way, they're still alive.
They're Conference USA.
Conference USA, thank you. Memphis has Arkansas State and UTSA. For example, let's see, SMU, they have Texas State and as of now, North Texas and Stephen F. Austin. Stephen F. Austin, by the way, is FCS. But by the way, that was an interesting thing that came down from, was it the Big South, which is an FCS conference, that they were going to try and play football in the spring unless you were a team in that conference that had opportunities to play FBS teams in the fall, in which case you could play. They're leaving that up to a lot of those lower conference FCS programs. Is, we're not playing, but if there are conditions that are right for you to get a game and to play a game, it's really the discretion of each program. I.e., if you're getting that fat old paycheck from somebody. Yeah. That's what that is. I wanted to see what some of the northern teams were looking at. Cincinnati is getting they have Austin P, and that looks to be it right now. Temple, I don't think, has anyone because their games against Idaho and UMass are gone. Right. UCF has, of course, officially FIU and Georgia Tech on the slate right now. Nothing new on that FAMU game, by the way, set for October. We were waiting. We thought it was coming. We thought it was right around the corner. Yeah, not there yet. But you're right about Temple, because Idaho got canceled and UMass wiped their season. So it's just a total cluster right now for the American, which is the case for everybody in the G. What is it? The G3 now. So the G3. Yeah. So, man, like I said, this has been an exhausting couple of days, and really that has nothing to do with the American. I mean, the American's only a piece of this. This has been exhausting because back in March and April, when the pandemic was really gripping hold of this country, and the NCAA was stressing unity among its power conferences, especially, that has all dissolved. Everything now is just every man for themselves. People are getting different information. People are getting different information from different doctors and making their own decisions on what should be the same information. How are we not getting the same information about what this virus does to you if we're talking to medical professionals? It blows my mind that. What was that tweet? I just saw that tweet earlier too, Murph. Somebody tweeted out the. It's from Brian Fisher. I know what you're talking about. Brian Fisher. Yeah, I wanted to read that, but go ahead with what you were saying. I'm so sorry. No, it's fine. I mean, because I have it too, but as I'll find it. I'll find it as well. Yeah, I got it. But it's just the fact that the Pac-12 can say, you know what? There's so much we don't know about this. Look at all the myocarditis that's happened, myocarditis that's happened with at least 10 myocarditis with at least 10 Big Ten athletes. We don't know about the long-term effects, and so just for now, we feel like it's best to push this to the spring because this could be really serious for some athletes. And let's be honest, there's liability involved, and so they're taking what would be called the safe route. And the other conferences are like, yeah, we see that information. We're going forward. It's amazing that unity that was supposed to be there it was all false front. It never existed. It's just every conference for themselves. And it makes these last 2 days really exhausting because when you want someone to lead in the NCAA, there is no leader.
there is nobody at the top directing anything. It's all a free for all. It's
Right.
a complete cluster.
Which is exactly how they want it, because they don't want the NCAA to take control of FBS football at all. And here's the tweet from Brian Fisher that we were talking about. He sent out first the athletic director Mike Bond in a letter in a USC letter. Quote, "In my view, no reasonable-minded individual could have listened to the facts presented by our medical experts and believed that we had any other option at this time," obviously to move to the spring. Right below that, same tweet, Bob Bowlesby, Commissioner Big 12, quote, "We can look at the same data and come to different conclusions," end quote. Which is, when you think about it, it's amazing.
But in fairness, I mean, we've all been to this. We've gone to doctors. We've asked for an opinion on something. They give you their opinion. You go to somebody else. They give you a different opinion. That's what this is. This is basically what it is. You're going to a doctor's visit, and doctors are having their own different opinion. There's some doctors that think you're fine. There's some that think, no, you can't do this. That's where we're at. And the problem is that every conference has their own medical staff. And really, we don't even hear from them. Now, we heard the ACC's Duke, specialist.
That guy's an actual infectious disease specialist.
And they say they're fine. They can do it. And then the Pac-12 doesn't. Now, part of the problem is, though, and I think really what this underlines, and I think the Pac-12, to their credit, has been much more in-depth in their explanation in the Big Ten, which has been a quagmire. There are some schools, and this is the thing, we could talk conferences all we want. This is a school-by-school situation. There's some schools that can't do the protocols that they can.
And it's state-by-state situation, because think about it, right now, you're having a spike in Arizona. That wipes out 2 of your schools.
Right.
But, Washington and Oregon are doing pretty good, right? So, and this is one of the things I wanted to pull up the conclusion from the Pac-12 advisory board. Currently, this is from the Pac-12 SAHWBI, basically their medical advisory panel, their document, which was their report that they sent. Currently, the availability of frequent FDA-approved accurate testing with rapid turnaround time vary at each of the Pac-12 institution locations. There's your key, okay? In addition, in many locations within the conference, community test positivity rates and the number of cases per 100,000 in the surrounding community exceed levels which infectious disease and public health officials deem safe for group sports. So what they're saying right there is, like you were saying, Eric, conditions in one part of the conference are different than conditions in another. And that's obviously, that doesn't give you an equal playing field.
Correct.
Quote, "It is anticipated that over the next few months, rapid point-of-care tests will become more available, and we will have a greater understanding of the potential short and long-term effects of COVID-19 to better inform medical decision-making. Therefore, it is our recommendation that we delay progression to contact activity and competition occur until that time all criteria stated above are met." That's from the Pac-12.
Yeah, so, I think it's it's very fair. There's certain spots that they highlight too some of the testing protocols that weren't happening at every place in the Pac-12, correct?
Right.
So whereas I think the SEC and the ACC would argue, hey, we're doing what we're doing that. We're testing for that. That was their counter. So I'm not surprised that a specialist in Duke disagrees with a specialist in the Pac-12. We're in different regions. They have different approaches on how to handle this. And the reality is, I don't think any of them really know. They're just giving you your best guess. And that's where we're at. Like, your Lincoln, Nebraska is thinking to themselves, we have no such thing as a problem with this. That's why you've heard them being outspoken, but yet they don't understand that, and that's not the case in Arizona. So that's the problem. Everybody's looking at their own situation, and they're not looking at the other person's situation. This is why we're in this mess. And it's so in a lot of ways, college football is just really a perfect example of what we're dealing with as a society in general. It's very, very natural.
Well, it's a big country, and the situation is different everywhere, and I think we kind of lose track of the fact that we sort of act like everything is on a level playing field, and the nation is some sort of monolith. It's not, and that's what these administrators are having to try and deal with here at this point. It's I don't envy them. I really don't envy them.
No, it's a very tricky.
And here in the state of Florida, we're at least, it seems that we're on the downward trend, right? But
I'm deferring to you guys. I'm deferring to you guys.
Let's go talk about that a little bit today about in a lot of the places where the AAC plays football in a lot of those cities, there is a dip in the number. There's a dip in basically the positive case trend lines. If you look at the past week or so, in most of the cities, that's right. The cases are coming down.
But they may not necessarily be down to a point where the guys who are making these decisions say, okay, I think we're going to be okay. There's at least the risk is low enough where we can go. And I can't blame these guys for being obviously cautious, like you mentioned too, Eric. And Brian too. There's liability issues involved because COVID-19 is not something that you can just check off on your regular injury waiver, right? It's not something that's basically incurred in the course of playing a sport as normal. So put yourself in the shoes of Danny White, of Mike Oresco.
Well, I think the presidents is the one that's
right.
More. I mean, nothing against the ADs or Mike Oresco. They're used to, not them specifically, but
President Alex Cartwright at UCF. I mean,
right. There's two things here. People have to understand this, and I know that some of the audience, and I've tried to explain this. The majority of presidents and universities, the majority of schools, the majority do not care about college football. Like they don't care if it gets played or not. From the state, there's more schools that do not have football than do have football, at least major college football. What presidents care more about is their academics, right? I think we all agree on that.
Well, they're caring about the entire picture, and there's going to be whether or not there is football, their university will exist.
And that's the big thing. It's not going to affect them. The universities from that state. It's going to affect athletic departments. But you and I know, Jeff, you've been, there are schools out there that there's a little bidding, hey, money going towards academics versus athletics. So there's always been tension there in some places, not at UCF necessarily, but other places. So presidents don't care, are not going to be worried about, hey, we got to play football because our fans need it. No, they're going to do what they feel is best. And the last thing they want to deal with is a liability issue with a student. And I think a part of this too is the fact that the players came out with we want to play. And this is I think from a president's standpoint, it's like, yeah, okay, well, if you're worried about it, don't worry. We're going to take care of it right now. We're not going to even try it. I do think that played a role in this.
Right. What you're saying is like that the presidents are looking at saying, we're going to nip this in the bud right now.
I think in the Big Ten and the Pac-12, yes, especially the Big Ten, and it's funny because people are trying to make it political, but the Big Ten is pretty conservative by nature. This is a conference that still very reluctantly plays games at night during the regular season.
Right.
So it's not like they're the most,
on one hand, the number of times that Michigan has played a night game at home.
Correct.
Think about that.
So they're not, and I've said this to people, the reason why student athletes will never get compensated is not necessarily because of ADs or coaches. I think ADs and coaches, if you did a secret poll, would be like, they're like, sure, whatever, pay them, let's compensate them. It's the presidents of these universities that they're like, no, this is an institution. We're not going to pay our student athletes, they're students. And if they don't like it, I think there are a percentage of presidents that would rather just shut down the sport and shut down sports and reboot than ever get to that point.
Well, I think that varies from institution to institution.
Correct.
Certainly. I'm kind of seeing it. I'm kind of seeing this as almost a cultural thing, right?
Sure.
The two conferences or the three conferences, I should say, that have pulled the plug for the fall. Pac-12 out west, Mountain West, mostly out west, basically.
Not big hotbeds for football, college football.
Well, also, it's. It's let's call a spade. It's a little bit more progressive out there, right? Big Ten in the Midwest, a lot of kids from there are from those big northeastern cities that come there. So it's a little bit more northeastern progressive. Down here in the South, a little bit different way of doing things. ACC, SEC, Big 12. You're talking Texas and the Deep South. It shows you sort of the.
I disagree with this stance just because the Mountain West plays in Wyoming and Idaho and Nevada, and
and
Big Ten-
California and some
I
and,
mean,
and
Yeah, but
some other
I agree.
places.
I agree with Murph. I think you're. I think I would go with the approach of those are not like football in the South is in some ways a way of living. I mean,
It's
this
a
is
cultural staple.
correct.
Yeah.
But that's the minority, and I think some people don't understand that. Like in particular, Tim Brando, who I'm a huge fan of, but Tim Brando has this idea that college football is like the most important thing out there. No, it's not. It's not.
For him, it is. He gets a giant paycheck.
Yeah,
every
well,
Saturday.
that's great, but nobody cares. You know this, Jeff, because you've been in the Northeast, like I have visited the Northeast. Nobody could. If college football was canceled tomorrow, nobody in the Northeast would care. Michael Kay wouldn't care. They'd be talking about what the Yankees are doing and when is Giancarlo Stanton ever going to be healthy, among other things. I think the same thing is in the West Coast. I think the sport is regional. It's to the South. And I think that's more of the explanation of why we have this divide. I don't think it's an accident that it's mostly Southern conferences that are still the ones that are trying to play football. That's not an accident.
And that's what I'm trying to say here is that that's how it fits in with the culture of where these conferences are, right? So it's it's an interesting point, but no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to let Eric go first.
Well, I think it's worth pointing out, just because the SEC, ACC, and the American and all these leagues are still trying to play doesn't mean they will play. I think that's something this could change in 2 to 3 weeks. I think really the question here is, do you agree with pulling the trigger this early without even seeing how it goes the next few weeks? One of the reasons why the SEC has pushed everything to a start of September 26th, and Greg Sankey was on Dan Patrick, has mentioned this. It gives them time. It gives them a chance to look at data. It gives them a chance to see how things happen with students coming back, what happens with NFL training camps. It gives them more information. Now, it may turn out that 3 weeks from now, they might come to the same conclusion and say, we can't pull this off. But they're trying to see if they can, whereas it seems like the Big Ten in particular, not the Pac-12. I think the Pac-12 obviously has different issues. But it seems like the Big Ten in particular, who've been very trigger happy throughout this. They were the first league to announce the non-conference schedule when everybody was blindsided by it. They pulled the trigger quickly. And I think that's where you're seeing some of the people that have been critical. It's like, well, what changed now? Yes, there is some conditions with COVID-19. We've known this, though. We've known this. Where have you guys been? With this people knew this when they announced their Big Ten schedule last week. So that's I think what's got people asking questions.
Because I think those things may be known, but we also we again, there's so many things we don't know. What we do know already is frightening enough. Again, there's been that report of at least 10 Big Ten athletes that have myocarditis. And so that, I think, enough spooked that conference, as it probably should. Because you're talking about not just, this is like you broke a leg. Those could be lifelong, long-term effects with your heart that you've done to college athletes. So for the Big Ten specifically, they looked at what has already happened and what we don't know. Again, this virus is only like 8 months old. And so they basically decided, you might call it trigger happy, but said there's already so much that we do know about this that can put our athletes at risk once they start banging into each other, that we're just going to call it off now.
Right. Yeah. And I do think, though, I want to go on the record on this in particular, is that the people who are saying, well, the media made this happen, are just stupid, are just out of you're stupid. Okay. Do you realize what happens if this whole thing gets, even if it gets moved, if it doesn't get canceled, even if it just gets postponed, how many people's livelihoods are affected by that? All right. Including ours to an extent. Right?
What are you talking about? Me and Murph are ready to talk about Dylan Moore for the next 3 months, right, Murph?
Yeah, AL MVP. I'm on the Jeff Sharon AL MVP Dylan Moore bandwagon,
which we'll talk about a little bit later. But if you're saying that the media is the reason for this, no, you're the reason.
Well, no, here's the problem with the whole media thing.
You're just looking for someone to blame for something that you should have been doing for 5 months. That's the problem.
No, the problem is, this is the problem. And some of the college football, and I'm not going to mention who the names are, not all of them, but some of them.
Out with the names.
Woken, Pat Forty, are let's be on a normal year, pretty negative, cynical guys covering college football by nature. Everything's negative. In contrast, Jeff Passan, who has had to deal with a lot of baseball crap, bull crap, quite frankly. I'm being real polite about it, with all the negativity in baseball. Yet when he reports it, he's not sounding like this, oh, Debbie Downer, this is brutal. He still, you could tell when he reports it that he does care about the sport, but he's still reporting it like it is. I think a lot of the college football fans have a problem with those guys, the way they represent it, because they're always negative.
They can't tell the difference between guys who are opinion writers and guys who are reporters.
Well, that's fine, but
Jeff Passan is a reporter. Pat Forty, I hate saying it, is not. Neither is Dan Logan. They're columnists. They're not reporters.
Well, I think they would tell you differently. I think they feel they act like they're college football insiders.
I can point to their stuff and tell them, you're a columnist. All right? So
don't
talk to me about
I'm just telling you, but that's who the main college football guys are. Pete Thamel's another, but I think Thamel's fine. I think it's Stuart Mandel is another one who gets a lot of it. He's a pretty cynical guy. I mean, college football, when you're covering college football, there's a couple of approaches you could take. And let's be honest with, NCAA violations, it's a very negative tone deal. That's the only time anybody reads Stuart Mandel is, hey, this team is on probation or this team is being investigated. It's always negative. So that's why I think that perception is out there. Obviously, they don't want the sport to be shut down.
Let me play devil's advocate for that. Are they being negative, or is the story negative and they're reporting it?
I think the tone. I don't think they're like, hey, where's the positive tone in a team getting probation? Well, when they say that the school got away with it, that's not really an optimistic point of view. Like you're jumping.
Is that not true?
No, that means they might have not done what people thought they did. Okay. Remember the Sean Miller? I'll give you an example. The Sean Miller case. Remember the FBI? Oh, he should go. Well, what's happened to that? What happened to that whole FBI case? Nothing. Nothing's happened. It was overblown. It was your typical nonsense shoe story. Everybody thought it was going to bring down college basketball. It was overblown. And that's an example of why college fans, and I'm not saying that you're wrong, Jeff. I'm just telling you from the perspective, that's where it's coming from. It's all the negativity. It's the negativity. It's the negativity. Because I remember that FBI college basketball. You would have thought the sport was going to crumble. And it's not. And that's what some of the fans get upset. It'd be like if Jeff Passan said, guys, the sport is gonna die tomorrow. We're doomed. If Jeff Passan would said that over and over, people would turn on him, but he doesn't say that. So I think it's just more of how the message is being delivered on that. But the sport kind of, goes in that direction. Again,
Murph being a well-trained reporter is neither
but
positive
Murph is not
nor
a negative guy. But no, Murph does a good job when he tells a story. You don't get a sense that he's very negative about it or he's doom and gloom. He just reports it. And I think people get a sense like, hey, what he's telling you is authentic. That's all.
That's right. My doom and gloom is solely saved for when I'm off the podcast or before this podcast.
When we're not recording.
When I log on to Skype. When I log on to Skype and Jeffrey asks me how am I doing, and all I do is primal scream for 30 seconds.
Yeah, and then I hear a bottle opening. So
yes.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll talk a little bit more about what's going on, at least in Orlando in particular. Some reporting from the Orlando Sentinel about exactly how many fans is Orange County going to be okay with allowing into the bounce house if the season gets off. We'll talk about that in a little bit more when we return. It's the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, Brian Murphy with you. Follow us at UCF_Banneret, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret, where we are continuing our developing story of college football on the brink. See, Eric, we're so negative, aren't we? One of the things that actually did come out from earlier today, The NCAA D1 Council, this is according to Chris Vanini of The Athletic, friend of the pod.
He's not negative, in fairness. In fact, he has a great wrestling podcast, as I've learned.
Because he's a reporter. That's why. The NCAA D1 Council recommended eligibility extensions for players who opt out or have their season cut short, and an extra year for those who play in 50% or less of a maximum. It says 50% of less of a maximum season. I think he meant or less of a maximum season. The board will decide next week. In addition to that, one of the things that they're talking about as well is, what do you do about scholarships, for example? I think that's pretty much going to be on a school-by-school basis. But I think that's obviously a very fair way of addressing the eligibility question. But the question then becomes, of course, as always, well, how are you going to pay for it? And that's going to be up to the individual.
Especially in football.
Yeah, especially in football where you're dealing with 85 scholarships, 65 at the FCS level. But overall, I mean, if we're talking about just what the NCAA governs, which is just allowing the opportunity to play, that seems to me to be fairly reasonable, don't you think?
Yeah, I just, and it's funny. It's going to be a broken record from last week. I wish we would know what the status is for the fall championships, so that way the student athletes and coaches can make whatever decisions they feel is best for their respective programs and their respective playing status, because we still don't know that as we record this. But right. I do think this is good news. I expected the fact they would get an extra year of eligibility. It makes sense. 50%. I think that's a key stat, which I find interesting. So yeah, I think it's a positive step. I would think, in fact, we're going to know by next week at the latest if we're going to have fall championships or not, which quite frankly, I mean, right now it's not looking good. I mean, because Murph, and you brought this up to me because I've been bugging you about this all week because I am very curious about it. Even if, I mean, right now the threshold is 50%. If 50% of the teams bow out, then there's no NCAA tournament to vote on, right?
Right. If 50% of the D1, of the 50% of Division I programs, don't play this fall, then they're not going to hold fall championships. They don't even need to vote on it. Like they won't even need to vote on it.
It's just an automatic trigger, right?
Right. And so the Big East, this evening, the Big East basically said, we're out too. And I think I saw somewhere that pushes a sport like men's soccer, I think, to like 48%.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, volleyball's at 52%, I think, right now. Oh, that's also on the brink, too.
They're over the brink, but obviously it extends to every.
Well, no, they're not. They're not over the brink. They're like 52% of them are still there.
Oh, no, right. Well, what's the same thing then? Because I think we're saying the same thing. Is that there's 48% are down. That's what we're saying.
Yeah,
and they still could vote it even if they're like, let's say volleyball stays at 52%. I could see them where they say, no, we're still not going to hold a championship because, first of all, you just lost your two marquee conferences in the Big Ten and the Pac-12. And the Final Four, I believe, was scheduled to be in Omaha. Does that sound right, Jeff? In volleyball?
Double
check that.
But, yeah.
So I'm still skeptical whether volleyball happens, considering the Big Ten and the Pac-12, that's your heavyweights in this sport. So I think there's going to be I just don't see them doing it. And men's soccer, if that stat is correct, Murph, they're done right there. And that brings up this question of, well, will they try to make it up in the spring championships or not? And so that's why that ruling, Murph, that you talked about, and Jeff, about the extra year is significant because now if there's no championships, to me, I would redshirt my best players moving forward. I wouldn't even try. I would treat this like an exhibition preseason moving forward because there's no purpose to play at that point, in my opinion.
No, I think you're very much right about that, and I'll tell you, a lot of coaches right now have some big decisions to make about what would they decide to do in that case. By the way, you're right. It is Omaha, Nebraska would be the site of the NCAA volleyball championship this year.
It's kind of awkward. It's kind of awkward. No. That's the real reason why Scott Frost in Nebraska is mad. It's not because of football. It's because of the Final Four in volleyball. But that's, we haven't brought this up, but the spring idea, that's going to be the other caveat. will football actually be played in the spring? They're going to, the Big Ten, the Pac-12 tried to play it in the spring, but there's no guarantees they're going to do that. And there's a question of, while we're worried about the health, rightfully so right now with the virus, there's who's to say that the same concerns are not there this spring? Also, some would argue that you have health issues if you try to play a spring season and a fall season. Some would say that's also long-term health issues that maybe shouldn't happen either. So there's a lot of complications with this right now with football that I don't think it's as simple as, hey, we'll just move it around to the spring. I think that's a last-ditch resort, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these, if football doesn't get played in the spring by many conferences. Like, I don't see the Ivy League doing it. I don't see other leagues doing it.
Well, I mean, it depends, obviously, on when you want to start.
Yeah.
On top of a bunch of other things. By the way, Mark Daniels put up a blog on his on a 96.9, which I think is worth reading. I took a look at it earlier, about a couple of different ways that you could pull off a season based on different start dates. One of them he put forward was if you start in Thanksgiving. Another one was if you start New Year's Day. Another one is if you start a little bit later. But what does that do? What are the different effects to it? And I definitely encourage everyone to take a look at that. I think that if you're going to do a spring season, you're shrinking you're obviously shrinking the schedule, no more than 10 games. And
I would argue, some would argue it has to be less than that.
Maybe. I mean, maybe you drop it down to 8 games in 10 weeks, and you would have to start it, I would think, no earlier than New Year's Day, right? Have like a jamboree on New Year's Day, basically. But I guess theoretically you could start I think that the latest, this is what Mark was mentioning, the latest you could possibly start a spring season and even get it off in time would be the weekend between the Super Bowl and the championship games, the last weekend in January. And that's going to be obviously, but that's going to have its own,
right? Because the problem is if you
challenges with, how do you prepare for the following fall? That's the question.
And does it affect, you would have to start the Big Ten, the fall in 21 later, and more than likely shorten, and you may have to shorten that season. So now you're damaging the 21 fall season. So now you could be looking at 2 shortened seasons. And
are you damaging it though? I don't think so.
Well, Well, I'll give you an example. Let's say you decide to do a spring conference only, and it finishes for whatever reason. Let's just say you can't finish it until April or May. Well, you're going to have to push back football in the fall. Well, what's the most likely games you're going to lose if you push football back in the fall? It's your non-conference game, which means for UCF, they would lose the Boise State home game at Louisville. That's marquee games. That's money. Like that hurts.
Unless you just push all the whole schedule back.
Yeah, we've seen how well that's gone so far this fall.
But that goes back to what we've been talking about this entire time, is that this is what the ADs and the presidents are trying to do, is they are trying to buy time.
Correct.
They're trying to buy time to make sure to get more information. Who knows about what sort of treatment options are available at that point? And I can't blame them, because if I was in that position, that's exactly what I would be trying to do right now. We got to buy time.
Yes.
You don't want to make a decision too soon based on incomplete information. And by the way, that comes back to the Big Ten and the Pac-12. What they're doing is they're buying time by moving things to the spring.
Correct, but there may not be an option to have a spring at that point. Like you have to be, and that's why.
But you can't. But that doesn't mean that you have to play now.
No, not. Of course not. Of course not. I'm just saying
we're buying time to make that decision. We don't have to make that decision now. Make that decision later. Of course, it may not be better, but it might be. We don't know. That's the whole point of gathering more data.
But I think that's why the
Mr.
SEC,
Negative.
No, I think that's why one of the many reasons why the SEC, they're trying to move forward, because the spring is very complicated. And if we're talking about the health of a student athlete, it's hard to justify saying, let's play a spring and a fall season. Go ahead and beat your brains out. And don't worry about the fact you're going to have CTE, which, by the way, the Big Ten has been very invested in CTE and concussions, which, by the way, and Mark Daniels mentioned this on the radio, there has been hundreds to thousands of lawsuits every year that doesn't get talked about over concussions in college football. But nobody brings that up.
Hundreds of thousands?
Hundreds. Yeah. So
Hundreds
even that's
or thousands, hundreds, not like hundreds of
I would
thousands.
say at most hundreds. Like,
yeah,
I
hundreds.
guarantee it's hundreds of thousands. No,
no, hundreds to maybe 1,000 is where I misspoke there. But the point is, it's not like football is not it's not like the safest sport to begin with. Like, I would argue that some medical staffs would not even clear you to play football, even if it was a normal circumstances. That's all I'm saying. I mean, it's not as simple as, hey, let's play. It's like basketball. Yes, basketball can play in the spring and then all that. Football is a very violent sport, so that is significant how many games you play, because you can't ask college players to be playing 8 to 10 games in the spring and then come back in the fall and play another 10 to 12 games. Say that you're worried about their health.
I'm sure the SEC will be like, hold my whiskey on that one.
Jeff, you talked about the eligibility, what the D1 Council said tonight regarding eligibility, the 50% threshold. All of that is being pushed down to the board of directors, who will take those recommendations and vote on them, as well as vote on fall championships on August 21st. That is, I know we've kicked the can so much that we've broken a toe.
So we will have a conclusion. We will have a conclusion, one way or the other. We will
cannot go any further. The NCAA says this. We cannot go any further than August 21st. So the can kicking stops next Friday.
You know what that sounds like?
So that's 9 days, right? 9 days.
Friday. You know what that sounds like to me, Murph? It sounds like we should be doing a live special banneret for a drink, fun drinks. Huh?
Here's the question, right? And like we said, so like men's soccer and volleyball are at 52% are still in, right? So will we get to next Friday above the 50% threshold across the nation, or will it be a fait accompli and like a formality once we get to next Friday and it'll all be done anyway?
That's a good point.
9 days from when we're recording this on Wednesday, August 12th. This is the story of a girl who cried a river and drowned the whole world. All right, so that's where we're at.
God.
Yeah, I know.
It's not a good song. It's a bad song reference.
Yeah, save that for when we do our live special reaction to the news.
They were one of the big acts when I went to grad night at Disney. By the way, that shows
Jeff was a big fan of like post 90s postmodern pop, or just post grunge pop.
Moving on. Story from Ileana Limon Romero, our friend of the pod on the Orlando Sentinel, along with Julia Poe and Stephen Hudak. Orange County, okay, let's just say football actually does happen in the fall. Well, Orange County is going to have something to say about that. They are reviewing plans from UCF and, of course, Orlando City regarding capacity limits at each team's respective facility. According to the Sentinel, the Orange County officials and MLS need to sign off on Orlando City's plan, which calls for limiting attendance to 30% of Exploria Stadium's capacity, requiring mask use and practicing social distancing. That's at least for what Orlando City's doing. No word yet on a number, no official word yet, one way or the other, on a number for UCF. I've seen a few numbers tossed around. One of them was about 25%, but that's another moving part here that we have to talk about is if and when this actually happens, what's Orange County going to say about it? And what's the plan going to look like? Because, and this is, by the way, this is not just for UCF. This is for everyone around the country that they're going to be dealing with it, let alone if you play. What does your local health officials, and state officials say about how many people you can let in?
Well, let me ask you both this. Didn't they allow Disney to open and Universal to open?
Not at full capacity, though.
Do we know the percentage?
I can find that out real quick, but
I would be surprised if they didn't. Now, maybe I don't know what the percentage will be. I would be surprised if they said no fans or nobody in the building. Based on just, quite frankly, the track record we have right now in our state, which I'm not going to get into, but it is what it is. But I would assume that UCF feels confident that they think they will have limited fans. Otherwise, you're not going through all this efforts to try to schedule home games, would you, Murph?
Well, absolutely. Well, first of all, you want to schedule home games, so for the obvious reason of possibility that you get some fans in there, correct? And Danny White talked about this last week when we met him for a press conference. Was they're still thinking about what is the county coronavirus spread look like? Are the trend lines going down? What do the county medical officials think? What does UCF think? He really wants to get some measure of fans in there to see as many games as possible. He wants to get fans in there to see 7 games. That is the count. He wants to see 7 games at UCF with fans to mitigate the what he said was the $30 million deficit really that they would face if they played games without fans. And so it's exactly why they're scheduling games, so they have more chance to get fans and to draw revenue from that. But we will see if, like I said, we'll see if that's actually possible.
By the way, Eric, according to Florida Today, the Walt Disney World limited attendance estimated to about, I think, 17% of capacity.
Ooh, that's a good stat. That's one to kind of mark that down. Let's see if we'll see if that's what they allow.
That's at least what they're reporting, what their regular capacity is. That's how many people actually showed up. I know that the limit was, I believe it was 25%, but I'm not 100% sure on exactly what it is. And of course, they're very strict about all of the
I just would be surprised if they said no fans under any circumstances. I would be surprised if that ruling
I would be surprised about that too, unless, again, we're starting K through 12 school in the next couple weeks here. Okay, UCF kids are already moving in, and the semester's starting. If we see another spike, today's August the 12th. First UCF football home game is scheduled for a month from now, right? So what are we going to see in these next this next 2 weeks is absolutely critical. And if you need to, and this is where everybody needs to start paying attention.
It's just so weird though, because like the Masters even already has announced no fans. Like most of the pros,
nobody cares about them anyway.
I disagree with that, but that's another story. In fact, I'm very confident that sport will happen, and that's what we're all going to be watching in November. But it's interesting because most pro sports, outside of the whack job that is Jerry Jones, have been very like, hey, no, like Washington, no fans. Like most of the NFL teams have already said no fans. And in the few that have said fans, very limited. It seems like, for obvious reasons, the college is the one that keeps trying to push this narrative, whereas the pro sports, it's like, we're not even, like baseball, there's not even been right, Murph? There's not even been a whisker, even a word said about any possibility anymore about a fan coming to a baseball game this year at all. Hell, the NBA is already making plans for if they have no fans to begin next season. And yet, college, we're trying to push fans, depending on the capacity. Although, in fairness, some of them have not, like Rutgers has declined.
Well, that tells you what the bulk of college football programs derive their revenue from.
Oh, I agree.
Most of them don't derive their revenue from their television contracts. Power 5 excluded. When you're talking G5, FCS on all the way down, they all get it from from tickets, from merchandise, from concessions and parking. That's what they get it from. I mean, that's
by the way,
bottom
line. The Cincinnati Reds are planning to bring fans back.
What?
When?
Yeah.
When?
So the plan they have has already been approved by the city and the county. The plan, if implemented, allows a portion of fans to return in either September or for the playoffs. It does not say how many will be allowed in, although the capacity of the stadium is 42,000. So 25% of that, would be about 10 grand, a little less.
Ish.
Yeah. I wouldn't make plans. I wouldn't make plans for the playoffs. I have a feeling that playoffs is not going to be. I have a feeling the playoffs are going to be on a neutral field in a bubble setting. Cincinnati,
Ohio, Hamilton County, they're ready to let fans in. Now, MLB apparently, I don't know if they have a say in this, but But at least the county and the state have at least the city and the county have yes. The state and MLB have said, I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I would play because now, in fairness, now do we know? Because I know you've been following the Disney Universal aspect. Have we had any information how things have gone since they've opened, as far as numbers are concerned? Is it
well, there's no lines. That's that much we know.
I mean, they're laying off employees. I know Universal at least is laying off employees because there's just not as much attendance, and so or partially,
right.
But what are you talking about? You're talking about case outbreaks?
Well, I'm just more worried. Yeah, that's the main. I mean, yes, obviously they're not getting the attendance number. I'm just worried, because that was one of the concerns when they were going to open. Is wait, is this going to cause a rise in numbers? Have we seen evidence that that's the case? Because that would influence some of these decisions whether you should let people into these sporting events in the immediate future.
Not yet. And look at what I'm seeing online.
Because that's good news. Yeah. I mean, if you're UCF, if you're college athletics, if you're sports in general, that is a positive that, that has worked out from that standpoint, if that's pretty accurate. So that's a positive sign moving forward that maybe we'll have limited fans either this fall or in the spring.
But when did these parks open not that long ago?
Yeah, the start of this month. So
yeah, it's a little quick.
Okay, yeah. 2 weeks. So what do you think? I mean, 2 weeks would probably, Jeff said. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say a little longer. Let's see. Let's wait another 2 weeks or the end of the month.
Let's give it some time. Let's give it some time. We got let's do what the ADs are doing. Let's buy. You
two are the Black and Gold Banneret specialist. You're the medical staff. Every conference has a staff. Banneret has. You two are the staff. You're the representatives.
I could make a joke here, but I'm not gonna. It's gonna be a bad joke about the AAC's COVID advisory board. I'm not gonna do that.
Let's not and say we did. All right, let's wrap this thing up here with a little talk about something good that's happening. Oh my God, Murph, Dylan Moore.
Woo!
Dylan Moore is mashing right now for the Seattle Mariners. He knocked another one out tonight, right?
Tonight, I don't know. I haven't seen that. We're talking Wednesday night, no. But he has 4 on the year.
Anyway.
Okay, that's right. Here, let me just read this headline from the Seattle Times, dated August 11th, yesterday. Dylan Moore turning into a, quote, absolute stud, end quote, for the Mariners. Now we're talking, man.
You know what? You like to see it.
Yeah. He came into Tuesday with a 333, 388, 689 slash, 4 doubles, 4 homers, 9 runs batted in, 3 steals, 2 walks, and 15 strikeouts. He's tied for the team lead with Kyle Lewis for homers, and his 8 extra base hits were 1 behind Kyle Seager's team high 9. That's coming into action on Tuesday.
Again, through 200, and this is this year, through 282 at bats last year. Or 247 at bats last year. That slash line was 206, 302, 389 for 691 OPS. Now he has a 1023 OPS. It's nuts. But here's my favorite stat, and while I've been screaming at friends that while I love this is really simple. By the way, would you ever believe in your life that Dylan Moore would rank in the 96th percentile of exit velocity, 94th percentile of hard hit percentage, and 90th percentile of expected slugging percentage? It just shows you how hard he's hitting the ball consistently, which is amazing. But
Murph, I'm going to have to tag this podcast not safe for work if you keep doing this to me.
Oh, my God. It gets better, Jeffrey. But it shows you what's happening with Dylan. So pitchers need to stop throwing him fastballs. Honestly, just stop. Because he's mashing every single one of them. I'll give you his stats on breaking balls are meager. He's faced about 100 off speed / breaking balls this year, and his average on those balls are about 100. Okay, against fastballs, he has faced 104 fastballs. He's only missed 7% of those fastballs. He has hit 30 of them into play. His average is 433 on fastballs with a 976 slugging. He is killing fastballs. Stop throwing the man straight stuff.
You're going to give it away, man. People are going to start throwing and breaking stuff now that they're listening to this podcast.
It's like Pedro Serrano. Like, throw him the curveball. Bats don't like curveball.
As we record this, by the way, Dylan Moore is 0 for 1 tonight in Texas. He struck out and has walked.
That's no surprise.
He's playing first base, Murph, starting at first base.
The different one, but look, the reason why he's even on the team is because he's a versatile defender.
Right.
We talked about the fact that he could play 3 positions anyway, and one of those positions wasn't first base. So he's a guy on the team that gives you a lot of position flexibility, and plays those positions, pretty well. What he's doing offensively is complete gravy, and maybe it's just a late bloomer thing. I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, it's all small sample size, but the entire baseball season is small sample size, so who cares?
I think
by the way, he's played every position but catcher in his career. This year, he's played left, right, third, first, and short.
Boy, that's a fantasy baseball dream right there, Murph. In fantasy leagues.
I mean, his fantasy ownership rate has gone up because of that flexibility and I mean, he's hitting second in this lineup now. It's brilliant. You love to see it.
Now, his team is not having the success. However, we do have 2 UCF guys currently leading their teams to first place in their respective divisions. Danny Winkler in the best record, the Chicago Cubs, 12-3 in the NL Central, and then a team, Murph, that you were skeptical would be any good, the Colorado Rockies. You underestimated the impact that Drew Butera would have, and sure, he's 1 for 11. But that's not the stat that matters. What matters is that the Rockies are 12-6. How do you respond to that?
Veteran leadership. It's veteran leadership. That's what it is.
I'll respond like many FBS commissioners. Come back to me in a few weeks. Let's see where we are.
Look, we're rooting for all these guys. That's what we want to see is all these dudes playing well. And I'll tell you, seeing Dylan Moore succeed at this level is just mind blowing to me. It's not that I thought he would be a stiff, absolutely not. But like to succeed at that, to have a moment like that in baseball it's just fantastic to watch. It's so fantastic. He
hit a home run a couple nights ago to dead center, 437 feet at about 107.8 miles per hour. That is Stantonian type numbers.
That's a blast.
Which also might make you skeptical of the ball, which again is completely.
Come on, Murph. What are you talking about? Come on. See, what did I tell you, Jeff? College guys, media. Oh, he's
negative. So negative. Unbelievable.
Sorry, Danny Winkler has an 8.10 ERA in 4 games. But he's contributed to their best record in baseball, the Chicago Cubs. We could have a Winkler versus Butera NLCS in Dodger Stadium.
And certainly, yeah. I can't wait. And certainly the Rockies are so good because of Drew Butera's clubhouse demeanor. He just brings everybody together.
He's a clubhouse dude.
Hey, by the way, what did you guys think of Taco Fall's golf swing? Apparently, that was out there. Celtics are going to be in the playoffs, but he's out golfing at Disney there in the off day.
The dude literally makes a driver look like a putter. It's weird.
I'm happy for Taco. I would like to see him get more playing time on the floor.
Maybe Friday, since the Celtics have nothing to play for. Their next game, maybe he might get some run.
Look, it's just good that he's in the bubble to even get the run, right? I mean, they could have just left him back in Maine, and they didn't. They brought him down. So, some would
argue that's the best place to be right now in the whole country.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'll tell you where we might see him if there's close game. We'll see him in the playoffs, and I'll tell you why. There's a close game. Celtics are on defense. You know he's going to come in and guard the inbounder. Right?
Eric, what do you think?
Wow. I wasn't prepared to do NBA playoff preview until next week, but maybe.
Got to guard the inbounder. You got a 7'6" guy. You got to guard the inbounder with him, right?
That's a theory. Sure. Yeah, that works. I mean, a couple seconds, that might work. Sure. I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but that is an option in Brad Stevens' disposal. That's correct. That's
at the very least, that's what we should be doing. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this thing up here. Murph, what do you got coming up? You're just going to be you've got your ear to Twitter and the phones, just trying to make sure that
have you just forgotten Ben Lively? Have you abandoned Ben Lively now, Murph? Are we not even going to anymore?
I have a little bit. By the way, I think he pitches tomorrow. But I will say this, just because of that MLB is back, I have taken my eye off Lively a little bit. However, I will say his last couple of starts haven't been great. And I heard it was like 2 weeks ago he had a start that I missed where he was pitching well, and then it all sort of unraveled for him in like the 6th inning, and he he just stormed off the mound. He was yelling at the umpire. It hasn't been a great couple of weeks. So while I haven't been great with the Ben Lively updates, he's been mediocre too. So
he's right now he's 1-5 with a 4.84 earned run average in 8 starts, 35 1/3. He's given up 19 runs, all of them earned on 31 hits, walked 17, struck out 27.
And he does actually pitch tomorrow morning against the Doosan Bears at 5:30. Again, probably not going to get up for this. I'm sorry that I'm relaxing on my Ben Lively coverage. But look, we're probably going to have some more college football news tomorrow. And your boy needs his beauty rest. By the way, we should bring up, and I'm going to bring it up because we also should mention Bo Taylor, because Bo Taylor is a part of the UCF collective that's in the MLB, but he's currently 0 for 16 with 7 strikeouts.
Oh, wow. Lordy, Bo.
So the UCF catchers are a combined 1 for 27 this so far.
I mean, look, it's a
rough year, man. Ugh.
Dylan Moore is floating all boats.
So now Sam Unger asked the question. He thinks if Dylan Moore continues this, is he the greatest UCF baseball player of all time in Major League Baseball?
We've gone. All right, so like the two things I took away from that are one,
we're just throwing away the concept of sample sizes on this one, aren't we?
We have really gone too far into a guy who's 15 games into a season. And again, I mean, Dylan Moore wasn't very good last year. He was really one of the last guys to make the 30-man roster for the Mariners, which, as I famously stressed in the preseason, are not very good. And so, no, right now he's having a great stretch. If he has a great season, it might be the best season from any UCF player in history, but I still can't knock Butera's longevity. And
World Series champ, man. World Series champ, Drew Butera.
Absolutely caught the last out of a World Series with the Royals.
And two no-hitters.
No-hitters. So, no, it's still Butera, at least for a while, until Moore can string a few years together. If Moore does this for a few years, then yeah, because obviously Butera doesn't offer a lot of offensive value. But we are getting.
I mean,
way
you
too
say
deep.
It's a small sample size, Murph. We're 25% through the season here. Like
but everything's a small sample in baseball this year. Everything's a small sample.
Yeah, every game counts as like 2.7 games, basically. Is that right? Yeah.
No, look.
All right.
Tomorrow we'll probably have some more college football news.
Murph means Thursday, by the way, for those that are listening. Depending on this is recorded Wednesday night. So
Murph has finally lost track of what day it is.
Sorry. No, it's true. Like, I'm sorry. I should always say that so Thursday we should maybe have some football news, possibly about UCF. I remember, I reported on Monday that they weren't practicing yet. Maybe that'll change at the end of this week. We'll see. So I'll be on that. Otherwise, we'll continue to monitor.
Some recruits too. Could be hearing about UCF and stuff. They've had some positive recruiting going on.
Possibly. I mean, certainly if you're in the know of UCF athletics, you know there might be some news coming down the pike about a transfer. And last weekend we had Devad Wilson from Georgia transfer, and then the next, or excuse me, I'm trying to get the names right here.
Jaden Francois is the next guy you came over.
Yeah. Well, we had 2 guys in 2 days transfer from Power 5 universities. You had Devad Wilson from Georgia and Jaden Francois from Nebraska. And there might be another one on the way. It's a pretty weird time where, when you hear about the Power Five is always the one that is pilfering the lower conferences, the G5 teams. Well, now here's UCF sort of picking at the Power Five teams and stacking up their roster with talent, and it's pretty neat to see.
I'll take it anytime. He was, by the way, Jaden Francois, originally from South Dade High School down in Homestead, number 28 overall safety in the country in 2020, according to 247 Sports, 6 feet, 185 pounds. So, again, another Sunshine State guy, South Florida kid, Randy Shannon. It's happening.
A lot of that.
Second half Randy, not just second half of games, second half of guys' careers, right?
Second half of recruiting season.
That's right.
2020.
We are down with that. All right. Eric, what do you got going on? We're going to reveal our top 20 coaches, right?
Yeah, if whenever the college football landscape news kind of slows down, but for sure, yeah, we're gonna.
I'm actually getting people contacting me saying, "Hey, when's the top 20 coaches coming down?"
Really? Yeah, I have a feeling. Yeah, we are important. We are the source for all UCF news and content. This is the show that coaches, players watch and listen. And we're the only ones that actually add credibility to any content for podcasting in UCF. So yes. And we will have that out.
Oh, that was some
soon.
Shots fired.
I'm just saying, we've all been in locker rooms. It's a crazy concept. So I think, yes, we will hopefully have that out soon. I also will have a list of the top games in the history of the Bounce House, in honor of the Bounce House being now called the Bounce House.
Fantastic, by the way. I just think that's so amazing. Everything about that is just fantastic. All right. Also, keep an eye out for some more coming down the line. Our daily newsletter from Jeremy Brenner, and Danny Medina has been sending out some really good stuff. She had a look at what UCF fans are doing. Those who collect paper tickets, since UCF is going to all electronic tickets. What's that mean for them? When and if we return to play, how do you collect tickets that are all electronic now? And she's got a couple more stories that she's told me about that are coming down the line. She's really, really thrilled with the perspective that she has brought to us. And I'm so thankful for Danny that she's on board. Thanks to all you guys. You guys are all amazing. It's fantastic. What a time to be alive. All right, wrap this thing up. We've got, don't forget to follow us at UCF_Banneret. Individually, we're at Jeff_Sharon, Eric Lopez Elo, and Spokes_Murphy on Twitter, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. And of course, here at blackandgoldbanneret.com, we are your home for UCF Sports on SB Nation. For Eric Lopez and Brian Murphy, I'm Jeff Sharon saying thank you so much for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We'll catch you this time next week, or maybe sooner if all hell breaks loose. Who knows? In the meantime, follow us, and we'll see you next time.